So there's virtually no theological debates that go on in the state legislature. When I was there 14 years, people would ask me, how do you survive down there? And I said, well, we don't talk about theology. That's not really one of the agenda topics. But what happens is people who go there, because legislators are people and they have their own faith perspective, whether it's no faith or another faith or whatever. So they develop certain values based on their faith perspective. And so when issues come up for voting and considering to improve the state, et cetera, people often vote sort of with their values, okay, not necessarily their theology, but they do have concerns that are important to them, and that's what they use to decide how to vote. So I wanted to give you a little example of how this relationship works. One day I was walking down the street somewhere, and I saw this little vending machine on the corner. And I thought that was kind of, like a newspaper vending machine, right? But I noticed that the content of the machine was sexually explicit content. And I thought, that's kind of odd out here on the street. And because if you go into a store and you say, I want some sexually explicit content, well, first of all, if you're a child or a minor, they'll say no. But number two, everything's covered up and you have to ask for it. And so, but yet you could go down to the street corner, put 2 quarters in this little vending thing, and out will come your sexually explicit content, in kind of like in disguise of a newspaper kind of thing, but it was obviously not. So I thought, now wait a minute, something's not right with this, because what if an 8-year-old kid comes up, they have 2 quarters, they can get access to this so easily. And Arizona had a harmful to minors law, so that's why the other provisions were in place. But there was a loophole, and somebody had discovered that actually you could do this legally. So I had legislation drafted that would make it illegal to have this kind of content out on the street for anybody to get for 50 cents, and it passed. And it's very interesting because something very visible and tangible happened as a result of that passing. The county attorney decided to prosecute the people who were promoting these things on the street corners, the distributors. And so after that passed, guess what? They disappeared. So now you walk around the street, you won't see that anywhere in Arizona where those little vending machines used to be on the street corners. So I was able to advocate for a value that I had, which was called the innocence of children, something that I feel is important. But enough members of the legislature had that same value. They had the value that the innocence of children is something we should be protecting. So in that case, it's not really so much a debate as it was helping people understand how this actually fits with their particular value system. So it did get passed. But you'll run into many people, and actually some of you might even be here, who say values and public policy don't mix. They shouldn't go together. We're told, keep your values to yourself. There's no place for religion in the public square. It's too divisive. And, to be fair, there is some reason for that kind of concern, right? So when someone wants to impose their particular brand of theology on other people, that tends to divide people. However, many of the decisions that are made down there at the legislature are made based on a moral basis, right? For example, the idea of punishing child molesters, okay? It's something that's based on kind of a moral sense that it's actually wrong and impermissible to molest children, right? And probably I would guess everybody here is probably in agreement with that. And so that's why that is there as a law. And there is a lot of gray area where certain values are expressed, that the values are not universal. But there's one value that this particular group in particular promotes that is nearly as universal as you will find, and that's the Golden Rule, right? So the story of Arizona becoming the Golden Rule state, or a Golden Rule state, is another example of finding common values with people who maybe come from different perspectives on this. So it all started when members of this group here, the Arizona Interfaith Movement, came to my office down at the Capitol and said, we were looking for a sponsor for a piece of legislation, a resolution that would make Arizona a Golden Rule state. And so I'm sure Ann was there, and there was Arlene McBride, McCabe, yeah, and you were there. Yeah, so they had some, they sent in their heavy hitters to get me. And so I agreed to do that and to kind of be the prime sponsor and shepherd this resolution through the process. And when I first brought this idea forward, I expected some resistance. And I did encounter something a little more subtle, which was caution. Because legislators, they have questions. Like they were saying, okay, is this religious? Are we imposing religion on the people of Arizona through this resolution? Is this political? Are we favoring one party or the other through this? Is this going to create controversy? So you would get these kind of questions. And actually in that moment, it really boiled down to, what did the language of the resolution actually say? And once you read that, and I'm going to read it to you so you'll know, then you can see we weren't mandating any behavior of anybody. We weren't telling anyone what they should believe. I'll just read the resolution. It's very short. It says, whereas the citizens of Arizona recognize and appreciate the wonderful diversity of peoples, cultures, faiths, and languages that make up our state, and whereas the Golden Rule proclaims that we should treat others the way we want to be treated, and whereas variations of the Golden Rule are embraced by every belief system, and whereas through application of the Golden Rule, we may be able to reduce and even eliminate prejudice, hate, bigotry, and racial intolerance, and whereas the schools, community organizations, leaders, parents, and children of the state would benefit by recognizing, teaching, and practicing the Golden Rule as a tool for kindness and civility. And whereas living and practicing the Golden Rule will have a powerfully positive effect on each individual and the society in which we all live. Therefore, be it resolved by the legislature that the members encourage the people of this state to live the golden rule and treat others the way they would like to be treated.